Hello, hi everyone, and welcome to a reprise of the first webcast of the Immersive Arts Alliance. Immersive Arts Alliance is a newly formed San Francisco-based nonprofit. It supports collaboration between international and local artists working with new media technologies, partners with Bay Area venues and arts organizations to create large-scale visionary projects that champion the emerging practice of experiential and immersive art. Today will be a conversation between the three of us. My name is Vanessa Chang, and I'm a curator, writer, and educator in the Bay Area, working in new media art. Clark Suprinovich has been active in the San Francisco Bay Area since the 1980s as a composer, educator, and arts entrepreneur. He's the founder and CEO of Future Fires, an artist agency for the digital arts, and he's also the executive and creative director of Immersive Arts Alliance. Today will be a talk and discussion with me, John, and Clark, and then a Q&A. So if anything comes up during the conversation or the talk that you'd like to ask, please feel free to write your questions into the Q&A function. With that, I'd like to introduce John. Can Buyukberber is a visual artist working on immersive audiovisual experiences, blurring boundaries between physical and digital spaces. His practice consists of experiments with visual and augmented reality, virtual and augmented reality, projection mapping, geodesic domes, large-scale displays, and digital fabrication. He's driven by an interdisciplinary thinking, which extends to art, design, and science. His work focuses on human perception and explores new methods for nonlinear narratives and emergent forms. He received his master's degree in art and technology here in San Francisco at the San Francisco Art Institute as a Fulbright scholar. And he's been selected to Autodesk's Pier 9 and Adobe's AR artist residencies. And he's exhibited at museums, galleries, and media art festivals around the world.
Thank you, Vanessa. Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for your invitation, Clark and Vanessa. Happy to be with you again.
All right, so much to unpack and to talk about in your work. So maybe let's start with a big picture question. You talk a lot about how there's this movement between architectural space and digital space and natural space for you, and that a lot of your work is really interested in trying to blend or hybridize the virtual with the real. How do you understand that relationship between the virtual and the real? I mean, what is your core kind of artistic philosophy about what you're representing? I mean, one of your works is called noumenon, which is a Kantian term for the thing in itself. Is exactly. That kind of, is it an idealization of the object? Is it something about our cultural moment that you're trying to represent, this kind of slippage between the virtual and the real? When you talk about mathematics, that's ages old, right? These hyper objects. So how do you understand that relationship?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Vanessa. So first of all, noumenon, I think, ideas, the world of ideas, I think the inspiration is coming from there. So art in itself is a practice to turn those abstract ideas into tangible things or experiences, right? So there is that already existing relationship between this hyperspace and the physical space. And I feel like from a different perspective, it is also a reaction. Art is always about how artists are reacting to their time. And right now, we are living in a time where we exist actually in different spaces. We have a physical, reality. We have digital representations of ourselves online. We have stream media, this or that, and our devices, our existence is happening on a different scales right now simultaneously. I think there's a reaction to that, to maybe finding somehow a more holistic existence surpassing all those different spaces, so we don't have a fractured maybe identity or perception of things. That might be, I think, like a general theme to explore those relationships between different spaces. And I think there's also a relationship between the relationship between inner realities and external realities, how we express our internal realities by encoding them into language or music or visual arts. So that's also another way to look at art, and I think it's becoming more and more obvious by these digital tools, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what are some kind of concrete ways that these strategies or these tools help you in either realm? Like how do architectural techniques, for example, help you understand and structure space digitally? And how does working in digital space help you understand or work with domes or other kind of actual physical objects?
Mm-hmm. To me, it's like a continuous flow of exploration, and also it's a way to just continue being creative. So it's a creative strategy for me, in addition to being an area of exploration, because when I feel stuck or bored working on a certain media, I can just switch to digital or physical or a different way of producing things, so that I can survive through that, you know, lack of inspiration, or like just repeating myself in a certain way of working. But it is it's a great feedback mechanism for me there, because when you have an artifact from either of those worlds, you can translate it into other, and you can look at it under a different light, and you can learn a lot from something tangible, and translate that materiality or that sense of perception into digital space. So when I produce something, despite it is digital and it's not confined by those physical realities, I can still reflect some of that realness in that space. I think that adds up to it, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what's the place of transcendental objects in that world? This is something that you kind of name part of your practice.
Yeah. So the noumenon actually is the same concept, because it describes this object that exists without any human sense or perception. So it is that hypothetical object, maybe that lives in a higher dimension or something like that. And I was also reading books like Expanded Cinema, or interested in the ideas of Buckminster Fuller. I was also super inspired by the mavericks of the 70s, like Robert Anton Wilson, Tim Leary, Terence McKenna, all those psychedelic explorers. The term of transcendental object is actually coming from that, because Terence McKenna was saying, all the evolution of human progress or civilization, they are signposts to this object at the end of time, which he calls transcendental objects. So he says all these effort is to bring that object from higher dimensions to this, and it's like the pinnacle of the whole technical or artistic progress. So I was just entertaining myself with that idea, how it can look like, how it can feel like, and so these are also, I guess, some sort of signposts to that thing that is existing in a future reality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like consciousness and testing and stretching consciousness in your work is really important. You had that quote from Expanded Cinema about new consciousness and the way in which art and media art particularly can help with that. I mean, and when you talk about Terence McKenna, obviously he was extremely invested in elevating consciousness. So, and also at the end of your talk, you mentioned a little bit about meditation. So is this something that you think virtual art is kind of uniquely positioned to do?
Yeah. I think so, because it is a very, when we're talking about immersive experiences and when we are talking about expanded cinema, it's all about some sort of multi-sensory experience. So we can directly work with the audience's perception, visual perception. for instance, when we're working with, projection installations, um, having these tricks of light and shadow, it is basically a play with how visual perception works, and we can expand that with adding different sound experiences or tangible experiences and surrounding people in these digital universes. I think it is a very powerful media to play with that sense of perception and how we perceive our surroundings, or how our senses and brain is reacting to the differences and changes in that.
Is that something that you found with your audiences? That
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's like a mutual evolution, because it feels very rewarding. I have an intent when I'm building the experiences with that kind of direction, but I don't necessarily say people like this is this kind of meditation experience where you need to feel this or that. So it's up to the audiences, but I've been receiving feedback like, oh, like I found myself in a place that I find myself when I meditate, and I'm in like 40 minutes in or something like that. So when people can travel to that space and find themselves there in like 4 minutes of this digital experience, I think it is very powerful. So when I received that kind of feedback and found myself in those deep conversations, I just naturally evolved my work toward more of that meditative direction, I guess.
That's really interesting. And it seems to me to really resonate with some of the folks who have inspired your work. You talk about Bucky Fuller, you talk about Terence McKenna, Gene Youngblood. There's this real strand of, it strikes me as the utopian, which is an interesting counterpoint to how a lot of people talk about the virtual now as being in many ways potentially really toxic and synthetic, and kind of sustaining relationships and conversations that may not be so healing. So how, I mean, is the utopian an explicit frame for how you approach your work?
I'm not sure if I feel that way anymore, to be honest, but, like growing up, we have that rebellious, attitude toward life, and, we have all these ideals. And I think it mostly finds its reflection, its representation in the visual aesthetics way, and maybe also how I describe my work. And I find that attitude also more hopeful and more holistic and positive, and it's not dictating a certain type of living or future, but Bucky Fuller's idea of design scientists is a great disciplinary approach to art and design and how to make things, basically. And now we have all these powerful tools and computers and digital fabrication. We can even better utilize all those approaches to build more efficient and sustainable systems and aesthetics and expressions.
So since you're working with and kind of bridging the virtual and the real, what would you describe or consider the materials of your art practice? Like what are the materials that you work with? If a painter works with paint, what is it that you do? What do you do with it?
Yeah, I mean, my colleagues mostly say they're working with light and space, and but I feel like at the end, this is a very abstract reality. It's an abstract universe, so the basic material is ideas and thoughts and the code that generates those forms. So I mean, I really appreciate generative processes. So any form I may produce is generally how that process looked like when I rendered it, So it is, I think that process is the material itself somehow.
I think one of my first conversations with you, John, was about emergent processes like the murmuration of birds, for example, these complex phenomena that are at the same time extremely ordered and detailed that you see in the natural world. And since then, just kind of a little parentheses in this conversation, I've encountered so many talented people and some of your colleagues, and I feel sometimes as if everybody had attended the same secret conference, because these fascinations sort of ripple and resonate through this emerging realm of the digital arts and of immersive experiences. People are working with emergent phenomena, and also biomimicry is, for instance, a phrase and a fascination that has emerged. So this reflection of natural processes finding its way into an arena that some people view as synthetic is interesting, and the way that those two worlds that might seem to be so separate from one another begin to overlap. I've noticed.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, based on that secret conference, I have the whole calendar of how this whole aesthetics, developed over time. I mean, we all inspired each other, but I know who is inspired by what and how that evolved. But yes, there is this very consistent language and aesthetics in people who are producing this type of art. But for me, I feel like the virtual world we are the explorers of this new virtual world, and we are finding a new language or expression in that world, which doesn't have to look exactly like the physical world we are living in, but drawing that inspiration from nature. Everything that finds an appearance in this 3D world has similar processes behind them. A rock and a bird, they're very different existence levels, but actually there are very similar processes if you really dive in deep, in terms of like mathematics and like those emergent processes. We have very similar relationships in nature between different scales of existence. So I find that super inspiring, and we are also using similar principles in softwares when we generate systems or forms or sequences, scenes. So it's fascinating to have the chance to have that novelty in expression, and I don't think it happens all the time, so I'm to be honest feeling very fortunate to be in that kind of paradigm shift in terms of how creative processes are performed.
When you say it doesn't happen all the time, you're referring to what?
When we look at history, there are really long eras where things were done in similar ways because of technicality or all sorts of reasons. But now we are in a time period where everything is rapidly evolving so fast. So our tools are evolving, our technologies are evolving so fast, and we are reacting to that rapid evolutionary pace with the aesthetics we find.
Got you. Thanks for clarifying. And a question I wanted to make sure we got in before our hour draws to a close. And in a moment, maybe we could talk about your plans to do some work with us in Oakland. That'd be terrific. But to set that up a bit, or just to maybe touch on an inevitable topic, here we are. Vanessa Chang has nicely phrased it as we have bodies in space, right? And bodies in space have become a problem. So in this time of COVID, with social distancing and so on, a lot of the work that you've described in this hour and that we are so interested in is described as immersive. People get together and they're sharing space and able to observe things, sometimes in 360 degrees. That's a literally quite awe-inspiring kind of arts practice. But a question that it begs is, art and artists have often been not toward the top of what our society considers to be a priority, urgently in need of funding and attention. The arts are sometimes seen as a luxury or something as peripheral. So my question, if you have a thought about this, is what is it now during this time when I sort of believe that I'm seeing this as even more extreme now, right? Artists are having trouble finding any traction. People seem to have forgotten. There's a temporary amnesia, as we, for very good reasons, need to take care of problems like homelessness, and people's hair is on fire. You know, there's like a lot of us are dealing with personal crises or crises with our work, and so the economy becomes a priority even more than is usual. I think we all understand why attention is being paid to these things, and yet I'm curious about the legacy of the arts as well as its future, which we're so invested in and we love so much, and we find this inspiration, this outlet for our imaginations. What would you say about the importance of that in this time?
Mhm. Wow, that's a great question, Clark. I think that's an important time for all of us, whatever our professions are, to have some introspection about, you know, who we are, what we do, what is necessary really in our daily life and what is not. So when we think about artists, I think it is also a great time to really consider deeply what is really essential to their practice and expression. Is it more about its, you know, social benefits of art and, you know, exhibiting something in a physical space and a bunch of people are showing up and you are the kind of center, or your ideas are the center of attention? Because there is a lot of people who are drawn to that part of the art practice, I think. And also when you don't have that kind of availability or setting, and in a world where we have all these different platforms now to express our ideas, what is really essential in terms of its materiality or thoughts or people's expression, and can it find its reflection on these digital platforms still as an expression, as a new kind of expression? Or do we need to maybe translate or exercise, understand more of those things in the physical space that is missing right now, so we can translate those values into these, you know, VR experiences or like VR exhibitions or web exhibitions and things like that. And also, I think, you know, we humankind experience all these, you know, wars and illnesses and different times, and somehow we survived and somehow we still do art. And I think we're going to adapt to this, even though maybe it's just it's a temporary situation, or it's going to be here for a while. I think we're going to adapt to it and this is going to hopefully even increase our creativity and expression to find new meanings in our work and, you know, living.
And to carry a legacy forward, would you say? The legacy of this, of imagination and of art and all that's come before.
Exactly, because like you said, I think, we need food, we need shelter, we need all these, you know, physical necessities, but we are smart, intelligent creatures, so we need content for our minds as well, and art is providing that all the time, whether we are, you know, stuck in our houses or we're able to visit big museums or shows or whatever. But we need something to what do you call it, food for our minds as well, and our art is providing that. And I'm seeing a lot of people, to be honest, although we're kind of depressed right now and it's not really super fun to work, but we can entertain ourselves and keep ourselves busy and you know, find some calmness pursuing our, you know, new ways of creativity within this environment.
And looking forward to the horizon a bit, because there will be a time when it's safe to go out and play again. As we know here at Immersive Arts, and as you, John, know, but maybe not everyone knows, we've been gifted the use of this quite enormous warehouse in West Oakland. And before COVID struck, we were involved with you and are continue to be involved in planning to do an immersive experience in this large warehouse in West Oakland. So before the hour is up here, maybe we could just talk briefly about that sort of work, which we've been talking about as volumetric, actually filling a space with light art. maybe you could talk just very practically about that. Vanessa asked earlier about the materials you work with. Could you describe the way you imagine that kind of work that we would actually be able to physically walk into and see on all sides of us?
So, you know, on a very practical level, I think it's great that we have a giant warehouse. So we can have the proper amount of people, you know, very spaced out in the space. So that's a good thing. That's a good opportunity. And I think, yeah, when we were talking more about depth in this piece, so there is a lot of depth to the concept of depth to explore, you know, in terms of spatialness and in terms of like philosophical views, in terms of the, you know, immersion we can create in that space. And I think when you have that kind of a big space, it feels to me important to benefit from that volume. So working with light and projected light and having some sort of haze to create this volumetric audiovisual piece where people can experience it safely and have their own personal experience in that volumetric piece and become a part of that. That feels to me like a really fruitful area to explore, you know, in terms of its presentation and also in terms of its conceptual framework.
I noticed sometimes lately in this, in what you could almost see as a movement away from the flat screen, the monitor, the projection onto a wall. One way that we've seen this illusion of moving holograms, which of course don't exist right now in our world, I feel like the creativity of artists like you is to sort of find a way to make that seem real, even if we don't literally have moving holographic technology yet. Are you interested in working with scrims, for example? I see sometimes people are projecting from the rear and also from the front. Sometimes there are multiple screens which are translucent. Is that on your mind as well? Those sorts of tools?
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much, but there are definitely several ways of generating that illusion, and it's been done very successfully by some of my peers. I would love to, you know, I need to be in the space, to be honest, to explore what would work best, because this type of experiences are definitely very site specific, and you know that's going to be our canvas, that whole three-dimensional space. So I have a few options in mind, but we need some time to experiment, definitely, to see what would definitely work best in that environment.
And it is hard to keep a secret once it's posted on the internet.
that time is going to come.
So speaking of time, if anyone has questions among our audience here today, please fire away while we have a few moments. John, it's just been fantastic that you've been able to make time to have these discussions with us. Vanessa Chang, also thank you. I know that everybody's surprisingly busy considering that we're rarely leaving the house these days. So it's been really great to be able to spend this time with you.
Thank you, Clark. Thank you, Vanessa. Likewise, it's been always joy to chat with you guys. Thank you for your invitation and great questions.
Of course.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So if anyone does have any questions, you can pop them into the Q&A box, or should be a little button at the bottom of your screen.
Meanwhile, we can show a graphic if you would like to contribute to John's well-being and his artist practice. 100% of the donations that we take in from this webcast, including when it's shared in future, will go to John for his presentation today via Immersive Arts Alliance. There's our URL, that's our website. You'll see a place in the part of the website which is Small Screens, Big Ideas, where you could donate to John and support him in that way.
Yep, see that there. Okay, well, I don't see any Q&A questions. We did cover a lot of ground, so I'm not too surprised by that. So I guess we can wrap things up then. Oh, wait, we've got a Q&A question. Oh, here we go, from Igor. John, what tools do you use to design and visualize the experiences? Do you do any previs, maybe using game engines?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Igor. I do a lot of previs. Actually, previs is a big part of my work, and I generally have a very clear idea of how the work is going to look like. So that's super beneficial. In terms of game engines, I mostly work with Unity, but I'm also super interested in diving into Unreal Engine as well these days. I use Cinema 4D and Octane rendering for more photorealistic renderings, and different types of tools like MadMapper, for instance, for projection works, and sometimes Touch Designer for more interactive installation. So there's a bunch of tools that I use, but previs is super important. I agree.
Here's another.
Try Notch VFX too.
Yes, yes. It seems super exciting. I'm gonna definitely work with that too.
They should change this from Q&A to Q&A and hot tips.
Question
if you
and
push Control F and
that's great. Cool. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, shall we wrap things up?
Yes, let's adjourn. So good to see you all.
All right, John,
Yeah.
Park, thanks so much. Everyone else, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
All
Stay
right.
safe. Bye-bye.
Take care all.
Bye.